I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for Monday, April 8th, 6 p.m. It shows that all aldermen are present. Approval of the minutes from the previous committee meeting, which was Monday, March 25th and Tuesday, March 26th. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Sorry.
Okay, Alderman Panis, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Unfinished business, the 24-25 budget. Again, I want to say that we appreciate the information that's been provided to us on a timely basis regarding budgetary questions. President Crawford had sent a letter to Mayor Olean just outlining some of the issues and concerns we had as a council, particularly regarding the 0%. We have a lot of water and sewer issues, as we have been brought up over and over by our constituents, and we discussed looking to set aside money for a capital outlay project to be able to fund this versus going to, as John had pointed out, going to bond, which we have to pay interest and closing costs. So we'd ask the mayor to look at that and also to decrease the sales tax revenue based on this year's sales tax. And so the mayor had come back with, asked to meet with President Crawford and I, and came back with a proposal which did decrease the projected sales tax revenue by $300,000, put in capital outlay projects for $300,000. And then we discussed that if we're going to continue to, if we want to get ahead of some of the issues we have with our water and sewer lines, we can't hold the line at 0% in terms of water and sewer rates. The city doesn't, in essence, make money, but if our budget is set at 0 and we're breaking even, then we don't have any money set aside for any of the projects that need to be done. So that will come up after the budget is fully implemented. The other thing we discussed, or passed, was that the proposed budget as it is, of it, 48.85% is salary, 24.30% is fringe, and 5% is debt service. Of those things at the moment, those are things that we can't control for. However, going forward, I think that we've all discussed that looking at efficiency in terms of positions, are all the positions, particularly as attrition happen, ones that are needed, going forward, how do we control for overtime costs within the fire department with the request of $120,000 additional dollars for overtime, which brings that to $220,000 for the year. And we brought those issues and concerns to the mayor. The last thing that we had outstanding was really looking at the request from Chris Schwery regarding the full-time manager collapsing to part-time, getting rid of 2 part-time managers and making a full-time manager. And I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read those, but it would come in at approximately, it would be $14,000 to go from the part-time to the full-time position. So that was one of the things we looked at to be able to make a fiscally sound as we look to say, do we add a position? I think that is kind of the gist of it. Alderman Crawford or President Crawford or Mayor Elio, if you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't at this time.
Okay. So, having said that, hopefully everybody has had a chance to read. I know that, oh, and Len, did you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. So Len had sent out the revised proposed budget. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to read that. I sent out a summary of our meeting. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read that, plus the part-time information, part-time to full-time information from Youth and Rec. So at this point, I guess I would open it up to see if there's questions or concerns there are, because one of our goals would be to hopefully get through the process today so that we could look to complete everything Tuesday and then put it on the agenda to vote on it on next Monday. That's our timetable, if I remember correctly. Okay? So I will open it up to the aldermen. I know some of you have expressed some specific concerns, and one of the things I asked is to make sure that, you know, that not just you're for or against the budget, but if you have concerns, to be specific in what those issues are.
I've asked Brad to come here tonight to go over the water and sewer. Do you want him to do that?
Yeah, great. Thank you. You want to come on down?
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions from what Lens had sent out? I know there were some things that you guys wanted to address from the last one. Specifically with the rate schedule that we have. About rates being equal.
Yeah, what is there was a planned rate increase over a period of time or something, Brad, from what happened last year? You refresh our memory on that.
So yeah, what I was proposing was more of kind of like a phased-in approach. And what we did at the end of last year was we just went for it, we made that change right to what we wanted to see instead of, so this year we would have made changes under what I was proposing, but I think once we got done talking about it, we just wanted to go ahead and implement that full change. So that's really what we did. So there was no phased in
So
change.
we're not looking to go any further with that at this point?
Well, I do want to mention some stats with our industrial rates. So our industrial rates, right, the first drop of water is nearly 26% discount from our residential and commercial rates. And right now, our industrial rate structure is a 3-tier. So it's the first 100,000, the next 200,000, and then thereafter. So our right from the get-go, we're 25.8% discount off of our residential and commercial rate for water. The next tier is 33% off, and then any water used over 300,000 gallons is 49.2% discount. I think we ought to probably look at restructuring that to maybe 10%, 20%, 30%, something along those lines instead of 26, 33, and 49. I think it's just discounted too steep.
Are the brackets good enough, or can the brackets be?
No, I think they're perfectly fine.
How many industrial users are there?
There's 19 in the city and 1 outside the city. They use an average of 290,000 gallons a month. If you average them all, we have 2 that use more than the 300,000 gallons a month. But
Okay, so 2 that go over the 300, and the other 17 fall, or 18 fall somewhere in between.
yeah, are much less. So when you average them, it comes out, let's say 300,000 gallons a month. So I would suggest taking a hard look at that and doing something like, a 10, 20, 30%.
Are you able to just ballpark a number if you went to that 10, 20, 30 scale, what the increased revenue would be?
And I would even explore like a 10, 15, 20.
Yeah, whatever the numbers are, can you?
Is there a way to?
It's difficult to do that because it's tiered, to come up with a number.
I would say you can go with a lower discount, because
You don't think,
They're making a profit out of it.
you don't think they've increased their prices on whatever it is, their goods they're selling?
Right, we have to increase our prices, so let them increase their
I
prices
think he's
and what they're selling.
advocating for an even lower break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, that's why I said like a 10, 15, 20. I mean, the fact that we're discounting at 40, what's the highest percentage? 40 something?
49.2.
I mean,
I'd like to see the difference in
yeah.
the
Yeah, I
proposed
think we need to look at how it
percentages.
changes our customers' bills, because if you, let's say somebody's buying $500,000 of water, and now it's gonna be $1 million, what happened, no matter the time frame.
Yeah.
So,
That is not like good treatment of your customers
Yep.
to do that. So it should be sensible, and we should look
Is
at
there-
everything.
Is there a way that you could put together some different, like scenarios based on different percentages?
Based on changing the tier as,
Changing the
as
tiers as
the
you're
10,
saying?
20, 30.
yeah.
10, 20, 30, you know,
Right. Yeah, I
take
can
the
try
high,
to
take the
come up
highest, take the highest, you know, industrial user, and is there a way to apply that
with- Mhm.
to what their water usage is and what their, say their bill has been over the past 12 months, and what that would look like under the different scenarios? Because I
Yeah.
think, I mean, Jason makes an excellent point, you know.
To lump them all together and to try to come up with an annual revenue increase based on, you know, changing that is difficult, but I can take one or two and say, okay, you use this much.
I mean, even if you use 300,000 as a benchmark and said, right now, 300,000 gallons a month would cost you X number of dollars, and add 25% back into it.
Sure, yeah, right,
You only got 20 accounts. I mean, I know you're not gonna give us to the exact penny, but
right, I can get you a ballpark, you know,
and I'm just gonna agree with Jason, but I'm also gonna disagree with the sense that, well, we hit nearly 50% discount in water, you can't keep sticking it on the residential or the small mom and pop commercial users to foot the bill to deal with all the problems. I mean, we can close the gap and still be fair about it.
So perhaps averaging each one of the tiers, and then using that as your benchmark to say, here's what the increase would be. So just kind of average how many gallons per, you know, in each, is the average in each one of the tiers.
yeah, I should be able to do, you know, something like that, say tomorrow and get it to you by end of day tomorrow, I would think.
That'd be helpful.
You know, I can tell you that of all the water that we do sell, our industrial accounts account for 18% of all the water that we sell, and they account for 13% of our revenue.
And actually, that would be a good benchmark too, to make sure that, you know, if it's 18%, that we're at least getting 18% out. Right.
So you can tell that it's we sell it at a discount.
Mhm. The other thing, and I neglected to mention this, is that we had talked about when water bills go over into the county, $250 being added to that for it going over to the county before, and that would be set up to go into, I don't know if we call it, what we call a capital project for water and sewer.
It asks about a capital fund
Yeah.
for water line replacement, not water line repair, like if there's a break, water line replacement. So like if you're doing West or South Union Street, that money could be used to go replace the water lines during that project phase, or East State, whatever, not just run-of-the-mill repairs, you have a line item for that, but that's capital project specifically for that.
Right.
But wouldn't that cut into our revenue, projected revenues, Ben?
The $250 rolling fee, I don't believe,
No, I'm sorry, were you talking about what we get back entirely from the county?
No, just.
No, just the 250, because I know when we had met, the conversation about that other 3% or that
Is it,
was,
right now, it's currently, is it 100?
it's currently 100.
And didn't you say
Right.
that accounts for $57,000?
So this year, it was 57,200.
I'm just trying to go from memory, but I remember it was about 57.
Okay.
So we'd ask, we'd be supporting it if it would go to 250 and then go to an earmarked fund for the water replacement, not all of the water that comes back, no, just the penalty portion.
Right, so if we did do the late penalty on the water sewer accounts, that would impact our revenue if we were to separate that from our regular revenues and put that in a similar fund or the same fund.
So that would decrease it by the 57,000, right? But there would be then an additional 150 per, is that what you're saying? That
No, I'm saying, so if you set up a separate fund and put that money that you would generate from the fee to roll delinquent water sewer bills to taxes, well, whatever that money is, you put that money in that account. What I'm saying is, on the water sewer monthly billing,
Mhm.
the late fee that is on those. I thought there was talk of also using those funds separate from the regular water sewer bill, but the late fee, the 5% compounding late fee into that same
I
fund.
think it might have come up in conversation, Brad, but the intent was just the $250
Okay.
fee, or well, the new proposed 250 fee.
Right.
Only that, I think that there was, because then I think somebody made a comment that if it's 2% now, if it went to 3, that 1% could be allocated. I think there was conversation.
Okay, yep.
But no, no, it was not. Anything that you budgeted as expected revenue, only the punitive portion.
Okay. All right.
And I think it would make it difficult to
It
compute,
would. It would.
deal with a transfer of the compounding stuff, right? So, but the one-time fee that, like JR was talking about, that should be easy enough
Yeah.
to figure out.
The late fee is, it's not that hard to figure out what it is. We know what that number is every month.
Right. But this one-time annual gets rolled to taxes, $250. We should be able to do a transfer easy enough.
And that's just an annual
Right,
deal.
and it goes to capital outlay. I think that's a great idea.
Because currently that percentage is incorporated into the existing budget as you submitted it, correct? The late fee, 2%, right? So,
Yeah.
yes, so we're not looking to make a change with that.
Right. Yeah, we don't account really for the $100 fee that we can charge for roll, because we have no idea if it's gonna be one account or, 800 accounts.
Brad, in fairness, I should have said too, like, for something like lining the major lines too, like, something like that.
Sure. Yeah. And now, speaking of that, I sent out another email. The email I had sent out previously was for 2 crossings, but it didn't have the 18-inch crossing in South Olean. So the one I just sent this afternoon has all of it, and it was 400-some thousand, and I was able to get in touch with somebody from the company this afternoon as well, and he should have an updated quote to me pretty soon. I'll have.
I mean, those are the proactive measures that I think we really need to start looking at, and why, at least for a starting point, we asked to include $300,000 worth of this sort of, money to set aside and encumber every year, because stuff doesn't, come cheap. To line 3, major lines is $400,000, and it's a lot of money. And so we need to do something to start setting aside, and I think it's a great strategy to take the late fees. So if we can at least, start building money into our budget, setting that aside every year, and any creative ways of generating new revenue to set, capital lining fund, it'll at least help us get, start tackling this.
And I think we've all heard from our constituents, even when people are talking about the South Union Street project, is, wanting to know what about the, the piping underneath and stuff. So I agree. I think we're all in agreement that having some money set aside on a regular basis will help us be more proactive and have a planned approach, which I'm sure will help you out also with that.
Sure.
Jason?
When it comes to generating revenues, the delinquent water and sewer bills, do those actually get reconciled to zero on a yearly basis, or does the county limit us on how much they're willing to carry? So that new list come out, when I look at it, I feel like there's accounts that are on there.
Well, remember, the county doesn't take, it's a 2-year process now.
Okay. There's still some that seem like they've gotten old. Do we,
It's 2 years for them to foreclose on a property now, but if taxes roll to the county, okay, with the money, if the water on it, then all those people pay their taxes, and yes, every year that comes back to us. They cannot say, well, we're not paying you for this, or we're not paying you for that. They have to pay us for the delinquent, what liens we have in delinquent water bills on our report to them.
But I guess what he's asking too is, it gets rolled to taxes annually. I know they foreclose biannually, but if it goes over annually, so if you've rolled my water bill to my taxes, I should now show a 0 on the delinquent water bill.
Yes.
and there's lines on there that seem like they've been on there for years. I'm curious, like how, is there a bunch that we don't enforce or something?
There's a,
Like
there's
we're
a
approaching $600 and some thousand, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, so we do have a handful of accounts that are involved in litigation that we don't roll. But,
Okay.
it involves just a couple of people. But anything that's has things going on with the account, we have people who are deceased that we don't roll their accounts, things like that. But the multi-year ones, there are a few. There shouldn't be very many. I want to say maybe 5.
Okay.
And that's why, it's because we can roll it all we want, but it's held up in litigation.
Okay.
So why would you not roll over a deceased person, so that way if it went to their taxes, it could be cleared with the estate?
Well, I think because it's involved in some litigation where it went from a family member to something else, and they were in violation of an administrative order in order to, like, to connect or disconnect from one of our services. It got pretty messy over several years.
So not every deceased person.
No,
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you meant as a blanket statement, if somebody's deceased, you don't roll
No.
that.
You would still have a lien on the property. So if there wasn't a estate, then we still have a lien on the property.
right. In the one I'm specifically mentioning, the people are deceased. Where do you want to start as far as the budget? I know you guys said you wanted 300,000 in capital outlay.
What page are you looking at?
I'm on 45, 46 of what Len sent out on Friday.
So just to give you, I know I've spoken to a couple of the aldermen, but, the way I envision it, and I've discussed with Sonia and the mayor as well, is, if we go forward with this intent, after passing the budget, we immediately then turn around, create capital funds for these specific accounts, into like JR's point. Water lines. We create a water line replacement / lining fund. And that way it ensures we do an immediate transfer, encumbering that $300,000 out of that line item in the budget and putting it into that capital fund for the intent, so it's to be used for that intended purpose. I know there was some concern in the budget, it can be used for effectively anything, and that's not the intention here. We all heard from our constituents, as long as I've served on the council, we all know the infrastructure needs that we have, and and we need to start somewhere. None of us want to raise water and sewer rates. Of course, nobody wants to do that, but the fact remains, we have to start to be able to tackle this monstrosity of an issue. I'm not putting all of my eggs in the basket that New York State's going to come and save the day. So, anyways, I just wanted to clarify that. That's the intention, is to immediately move that money into a capital fund for that intended purpose.
Is that kind of what you were asking, Brad, or?
No, that addresses a separate issue.
Okay.
But as far as like what you want me to go over as far as the budget changes, there really weren't a whole lot of changes. There was some changes to the 100 line, with some staffing changes, positions that were omitted, and then the 300,000 in capital outlay. And where I was going was, do you want to leave 300,000 in capital outlay, or would it be more appropriate to put the vast majority of that in contingency? Not being earmarked.
I think it's 6 of 1. Let's leave it in capital outlay. We know it's going to be there, and then the second the budget gets passed, right, in the new fiscal year, we'll transfer it, and just as I described, and then I think it comes out of that, whatever you have in there for capital outlay to do the sorts of repairs that JR said, if you get, what is, I'm trying to, what is your current amount that you had in there for capital outlay? To try to, you have down the water lines, you need maintenance on that, et cetera.
What did I have in capital outlay prior to adding?
Yes, yeah,
Oh, 16,000.
right. So effectively, that would remain after we do the transfer.
In the 16,000, you didn't have 25,281?
In the water capital outlay?
Yeah, are you on page
Transmission and
46? Reading it on my phone, so let's make sure we're on, yeah.
Transmission and distribution doesn't have a capital outlay line.
Oh, okay, so I'm trying to find where,
So I'm on page
oh, there it is.
45, 46?
So you put it into purification, the purification department.
Yes,
I see.
that's where it is.
Right.
So I'm confused, looks like we have 2 pages, 45, 46. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we do.
yeah,
So yes, the purification. So Brad, that would, if there's 300,000 in there and we move the 300,000, then that wouldn't leave you anything in the budget in that.
Right. Which,
so you could leave 16,000 and then move the rest over.
So that would leave 284 to move.
right,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because that would deplete it completely for you then.
right.
Okay. And would it take any action on our part to move that right after kind of the budget's passed?
You want to
Appeal? Okay.
resolution.
And do you have to, you don't have to wait for the new budget year to take place, Bill?
Yeah, because this won't be there until
So we would have to wait to do the resolution until June 1?
June 1.
Okay.
Into a new capital fund.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you meant to
I think
do this on an annual basis. I thought the intent was to do it on an annual basis. And that's why I was saying, if you move it to contingency, the money's kind of in your budget to manage, even though, and then at the end of the fiscal year, you would set up the capital fund, or you can set up any time during the year, and then whatever remains, you would dump in there.
I think our intent is to keep it in a capital project so that it doesn't, it's kind of like having, $100 in your pocket and you spend it on this and that, but to leave it for the larger projects.
Sure.
Well, just keep in mind that a contingency account, council would have to vote to move money out of that.
Okay.
So
I also think that we do whittle away at that for needs all throughout the year. And, right, as problems come up, where this, again, the intended purpose would be either you have a major project, just like you brought up $400,000. You know, ideally, it would be great if we could not spend that for 2 or 3 years, save up $1 million in that capital outlay, and not do a water line replacement. So we don't have to bond for it. At least I think that's the thought. But we can talk further about that. Do you think that's a reasonable amount to start with? Is 300,000?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The only concern I have with it is with the budget as lean as it is,
Yeah.
and we put 75,000 in contingency, I just worry if we need something, is 75,000 going to be enough? I don't think that 75,000 is.
Well, you still have 75,000 left from the previous year. And then back to the combining the capital fund and the contingency, it's probably better to leave them separate, because if not, as we're approving things throughout the year for contingency, and then we try to get a consolidated breakdown of what was used for what. Now Lens is trying to figure out, okay, this was used here, this was used here, some of this was capital, some of this wasn't. If it's just in a separate account, we don't have to worry about that. So yeah, I'm definitely in favor of it just going right into a capital fund strictly for that only. And I mean, we can always what if, but you have 75 grand still sitting there that hasn't been touched all year, so.
And if there's no immediate needs for that, Brad, then let's encumber that, so you can have 150,000 for contingency needs, unless I forget off the top of my head if there is water needs, capital needs coming up on your list. Was there stuff for contingency that we had earmarked for?
We've got a number of things in the past we addressed this year.
No, I know, well, we talked a little bit about it, but not, and that typically comes after the budget. We, identify what are the most immediate needs. I don't recall seeing
Communications.
the communications. That's right. That's right. Yeah, because the water capital total is 132. So that one will probably get spent,
Yeah.
right? Because the communication system.
Alderman Benyon.
I was just gonna ask, going backward just a little bit to go with this, is how soon do you think you would have projected numbers on that industrial water? Because what's captured there may in itself come close to closing that gap on the capital outlay request.
Probably tomorrow, end of the day tomorrow.
So that's, I was just wondering, rather than beat this up too much, see what that's gonna potentially capture. And it may put a dent in that request on its own,
Sure. Yeah.
if that's agreeable to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, our industrial accounts account for,
I mean, I just ran just basic numbers, Brad, like, it looks like if you use the full 300,000 gallons, just on average, a year you pay 360. If you just sliced it by 25, you said it's roughly 50 right now is the deepest discount, right?
we don't sell a lot of water in that category.
Okay,
When we do, it's a lot, but it's not consistent.
okay. So even if you just took that and discounted that, cut that discount, so the deepest discount was 25, it captures about $180,000.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be significant for sure.
That's why I was saying, maybe look at that first and see what that captures.
Yep. Yeah, the additional revenue will be significant, like you say, a couple $100,000 anyways.
Alderman Anastasia.
Yeah, I just have two questions. The first one is, about a year ago, or 2 years ago, Cuba Cheese was here and wanted to dump some brine down North Olean, and pay us a fee for that. And I was just wondering, I haven't heard any more about that since, that phone conference call we had with Robert Thompson and you and I. I just wondered, is that still on the table, that they're gonna be dumping brine and giving us a fee for that?
No, we couldn't clear the regulatory hurdles in order to accept that.
I just was wondering what ever happened to that.
Yeah.
And the second question I had is, with the Oaks bus, the state owes us quite a bit of money still, and I believe it's close to $500,000, and it's already been paid for in current past budgets. So when the state sends us that money, can we earmark that towards capital projects for water?
You mean with the?
When it comes in the future?
Yes, not the money that came in this time. Mayor?
What'll happen is we just received 480,000.
Right,
Okay.
don't they still owe us 5 more?
Well, they are at the end of this, yeah, they're gonna owe us about 555,000. But right now, that, I just want to back up to clear, so that 480,000, that was from the 22-23 budget, okay? We thought we were gonna be able to just move that right into contingency. We can't, because the 40, get this, so the 23-24 budget had a deficit. That was, Len's, what did BWB tell us that, yeah,
The thing is, what happened is, the city fund the money, so whatever money comes in, we have to replace that money when we receive it. Because right now, we just pay for all the services for the buses, and now we're taking a hit. So when the money comes in, we have to replace what we already spent. It's not really some money we make over what we expected.
There's our bank accounts negative on bus, still get paid for bus.
so we got the 480, that is revenue for this year, for this current budget. So by the time we get to 555,000, this budget year is gonna be over.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I thought I was under the assumption that the 480 you took out of contingency to pay the bills. You know what I'm trying to say?
You're on the right track, Dave.
Yeah.
It's just that the 480 in 22-23, we took that 480 hit, it had to come out of our contingency fund.
Fund balance.
I'm sorry,
Fund balance.
fund balance, I'm good, yeah, out of the fund balance, thank you. So
We gotta replenish the fund balance.
eventually, when we get caught up, we will be able to refund, or, some of the fund balance, but it's gonna be, by the time they pay us, it could be another 18 months down the road. So, out of this budget, that's gonna be counted as revenue. And what they owe us, it'll deduct from that what they owe us, for lack of a better term. But we're still gonna have to pay the difference out of our fund balance. So that, depending on how soon it takes the state to pay us, remember the last time it was 18 months, so hopefully it won't be that long. But then it'll be up to the auditors to tell us how we have to carry that forward.
So I just want to clarify, so that 480,000, which was owed to us from 22-23, that money had originally come out of our fund balance, so this 480,000 will go back into the fund balance then?
No, it's revenue for this year. Okay, we couldn't take that check and just put it into fund balance. It's revenue, has to be counted as
To pay-
revenue for the current budget.
For what we are currently carrying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that subsequent 555,000, we should be kind of whole with,
Once we
And
receive
then-
the final payment,
Right.
it should
Yeah.
be able to make the fund balance whole.
right,
So
That's
two
what I
years,
was
2 years ago, we essentially ran a deficit of 440, right?
Yep.
Now this year, we get to put that 440 into our revenue line, but
right.
our Oats cost is 500 and something
Right.
instead, so now we're still running a deficit. But then next year, or 2 years, whenever we get the money, then that has to go
Yeah.
back, that'll be revenue in that year.
It's
So-
about paying that, Peter.
Yeah,
Yep, I got that, that's where I was going with it.
Yeah,
Right.
Basically, want to carry.
eventually, we'll get it back into the fund balance.
So, other questions for Brad regarding water and sewer?
Small quick question, so we're talking about, possible increase with industrial, what about the, commercial? Or is that one is running with decent percentages?
Yeah, so commercial water rate, is the same as the residential water rate.
Okay.
Once you go over 6,000 gallons, we discount their water rate 8%.
Okay.
The average commercial user uses 11,500 gallons a month.
So 8% is the highest we give for residential and commercial?
Residential, there's no discount,
Oh,
it's one rate.
even better. So with industrial, what did we suggest? 15?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna need that to get the calculation.
I think we need to, I mean, I agree with Panis with what he said with not just throwing the whole boom on someone. Maybe do it over a 2 or 3 year increment, I don't know. But I think we need to get below 10% on a discount. If we're not giving discounts to our residents, and then we are giving a little bit of a discount to commercial, why are we giving such a big discount to the industrial? I say recoup that. We're doing the work, we're not getting paid for it. We're just saying, here you go, giving away water.
Right.
So let's recoup it. I don't know, maybe start at 5%, 5, 8, and 10, and 10 be the highest discount, and then gradually increase, or gradually decrease anyway, to that amount over the next 2-3 year.
Right.
And see where that works. I mean, and then we can see from whatever the accounts, what was it, 19, 18 accounts, see what they would do a cost analysis to see what it would be over the next 3 years of what they would be. That way, at least an organization, they can get their budgets
Right.
in line with what's to come. I mean, but this is the cost of business, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just unreasonable to think that you can sell water at, 25 to 49%.
Right.
It's just not.
Well, I've got to imagine, I mean, we don't even break even on that.
We probably don't break even on the 49.
Right.
And it's all
I
the
mean, I think your
revenue.
indicator about the revenue tells you about how far you're off.
Right.
Right, like your break even if the revenue from them is 18%.
13%, and they're 8.
So, you're talking about 5% change, because realistically, it's not about, you're buying, let's say you're buying cars and reselling. If you buy enough of them, you might get them 50%. You don't know that, John, I mean, you sling enough cars around. And it also makes sense on the alternatives, I think, maybe not us, but Brad should have an idea of what somebody's alternative is if they wanted to. We don't want somebody to say they want to leave Olean because of their water rate. And you could say, well, they're not gonna, but, I mean, that's not fair to say, we got you by the, we got you handcuffed, let's up your rate. That's, I thought that's the way the world's trying to think better than that today. So,
I agree.
to just go take somebody with money and take it from them like that is unfair.
As far as I started to charge an average Joe the full amount.
Well, no,
Well,
but
larger
there is
corporates.
an economics to
Yeah.
selling and making things in bulk, and you gotta understand where the sensibility lies, not just what we think it should be.
Alderman Benyon.
How many commercial accounts are there, Brad?
600 and,
Just an average, 650?
there's, say 730.
So I guess I was gonna piggyback off from Vernon a little bit and with Jason's comment. I agree with you, but you get an 8% discount, 8% discount after 6,000 gallons is commercial business, which is clearly a huge moneymaker, which don't have the lines that probably the industrial users do. And then you get 8% deduction after you use 6,000 gallons. Residential gets 0 deductions. A gallon of water is a gallon of water with a 1,600 gallon minimum. So So there are people out there that probably don't even use a 1,600 gallon minimum and are paying a higher water rate and now paying a minimum that they didn't even achieve. Well, 19 users are getting to enjoy up to nearly a 50% deduction at a loss to the city. So, and then the commercial businesses, you're talking about people that may start leaving. What about your small mom and pop commercial businesses that are gonna say like, hey, it's too much to do business here? And they start leaving. It's gonna have a larger impact than, I mean, I don't think that a water rate's gonna, could it? Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna like make one industrial user be like, well, we're out. So.
Oh, I don't think it is either.
I'm just saying there's a huge disparity, like, you know, the commercial businesses are the backbone, and taking them to task.
So Brad's gonna run some numbers for us and get it together, and then we'll kind of go from there. I think that was a good suggestion then, to see where it takes us. And
What, excuse me, what guidance have you given on what percentage do you want?
so I think run it on, why don't you run it on, if you, going with Vernon's idea, maybe a graduated component, do 5, 10, and 15, 10, 20, and 30?
It'd be fine if you only have one price break, just like you do in the commercial structure.
But I do want to go back to Jason's point. I think it's valid. I think that's where we can try to get over time in a couple of years. From an, you know, I think we need to recognize the importance of the large volume users, and we can try to achieve that. To do that in 1 year is a lot. So to go to a 10, 15, 20, or something 8, whatever, right? 10, 15, 20 is going to get you significantly more revenue than the 49% currently. And we try to take that for a year and see what the feedback is. I mean, I think the flip side to JR's point too is some of these industrial users are also, you know, not-for-profit entities that, you know, they don't pay property taxes. And, you know, the other ones, I mean, it's a business expense for them. Like Vernon said, the average Joe, we don't get to write off our water bill. We've got to try to, you know, every resident has to try to pay for it. So there has to be a compromise, I think. There has to be some middle ground to try to be a good steward to industry, but at the same time recognize that it can't all fall on the backs of the average Joe.
So the original proposal that Brad said was to look at changing it maybe this year to 10, 20, 30. And then, you know, one of the suggestions was is if we're looking to get to down the road is if we had some projections, and maybe not getting them right now, but then businesses could plan also for any changes that were going to occur.
Do you think 10, 20, 30 is too big of a jump?
This is the perfect world, what do you want the end result to be? Is the end result?
Right. So Brad, remind us of what the tiers are, right? The highest is 49.2. What is the initial?
Did you say 25,
So it's
37?
25.8, 33, and 49.2.
Okay. And you're right, with the end in mind is where
So then
we should be.
try and get 300K a year, what we put in infrastructure, is that what we're trying to do?
No, I just think what are you looking for a price break? Is it, at the end of it, is it 10, 15, and 20? So then you have it and go half this year and half the next year.
Right, that's.
Or I still would be in support of just doing, you said there's only 2 that go over, 2 price breaks. You know, just wiping out the one price break, and if the end result is 10 and 15, whatever the difference is to get to achieve that halfway this year, and then the balance next year. I mean, you said you only have 2 users that usually go over, so why just give one price break just like on the commercial side?
Yeah, good. Yeah. You could break it down, you know, the first 150,000
Is that where we wanna be, 2 tiers, 150,000, and then over 150,000? And run it, would we run, right now, if the first tier is 25 and the last tier is 49, would we say 15 and 30 this year? Or, because Brad, and as the mayor said, let's give Brad the guidance he needs to be able to get the
Was I
numbers.
saying, if the end result's 2-tier, 10 and 15, just for
Yep.
vehicles, then this year, take it down to, 18%, and whatever that other one would be, Brad, 22% or somewhere around there, whatever, cutting the difference of what it is now to what we want it to be, take half of it this year, half of it next year.
So you wanna end up with 2 tiers, and you want it to be, when it ends at.
Say 10 and 20, I could live with that. I think that makes sense. Didn't you say that or no?
I think I said 10 and 15,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
if I, either one.
Maybe you, same logic,
At the end,
at the end.
right.
At the end.
So,
In 2 or 3
would it
years.
be 18 and 25 then, if we're kind of going in?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
18 and 25?
Yeah.
This year, and then next year, 10 and 15, or
Yeah.
18 and 25 and drop off the
whatever,
last.
off the top, so the price breaks at 150,000 gallons, you said.
Mayor?
Another thing I want you to keep in mind, that once we set this price on the 15th, then most of these places have already set their budgets. They probably go fiscal year, or they probably go calendar year on their budget. So that's only gonna give them 2 months to make adjustments. Not even 2 months. But
And I,
what I'm trying to say is that we've done this before. Maybe we want to take a look at this and put it into effect instead of going June 1, we go January 1, to give them enough time to adjust their budgets. Just a thought.
I mean, it is a pretty significant change, and you could do just that, you could do June this year, January, and then June again, and end up where you wanna be.
so I think if we get the numbers, then we can, look at what would be realistic, because I appreciate
I guess,
the challenge there.
I guess then if the guidance was 10 and 15, within 2 years, you figure out how to get there, and that's what you present.
10 and 15, 2 tiers by June of 25.
Cause he's gonna break it up into
No,
3.
that would be actually by June of 26,
26,
right?
yes, in 2 years, I'm sorry.
2 years.
We're working on 24, 25.
Right.
June of 26,
So
Brad.
it'd be 25, 26.
Yeah.
It'd be June of 25, going to 26, May of 26.
Right, so
Yeah.
By June of 26, you would have the full plan implemented to get to a 2-tiered system of 10 and 15%.
right, what I'm saying is I think you can get there if you voted on something or implemented something June 1st of 24, and then make another adjustment January 1st of 25.
I agree with you, I just was saying like at the minimum, so if your plan comes in faster,
Yeah.
and so be it, I was just giving you the guidance. If your plan came in under, you got it done in 3 months. Like, so whatever you do inside of that structure, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
So Brett, I imagine you're gonna work something out on a spreadsheet to look at the numbers, or
Yeah.
present it to us. Can you show us rough out what the revenue percentage of made by water at those rates would be? So like, tell us industrial, commercial, residential, when you change those rates and you're estimating, what is the percentage of our water revenue that's gonna come from that use?
Oh, yeah, I should,
Like, so
say,
we can see how much these changes drive it up. We're 13% now, do we end up going to like 25, becoming around 20, where?
Yeah, he should be able to use the current numbers and project it with the proposed rates, and then you'll see we should be able to see the difference between what it is and what it could have been. And that should give us the,
And you're just looking to make sure we have the percentage
I
in
wanna see
there.
the balance, how the
Yeah.
percentages like exist,
Yeah, you
so
said-
when we make a change and then the final. So like, what does, comparing industrial, residential, and, industrial, seeing how that revenue stream changes in the water based on these changes.
So you're looking at what I was mentioning earlier, the water that we sell to the industries, it makes up roughly 18% of what we
Yes,
sell.
I wanna see that for all three uses as we estimate the changes.
I see. But what you're really focusing in on is, it's, they take up 18% of our water sales, but they're only 13% of our revenue.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That, you're trying to close that
Yes,
gap. wrinkle.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even, you know, let's look, I'd like to see them and how the changes flush it out.
Okay.
Because I think if we hit, when the numbers are where they should be, like economic wise, they'll kind of line up where
More
we're
in
making
balance.
revenue and they should be close.
Is
Now,
that
granted, we
fair?
can say we put more weight on one use over the other, but it should be calculated and should understand it.
Right. Well, I won't be able to do residential or commercial without knowing our rate increase.
yeah,
But you can tell us what the, should still be able to estimate, like you can tell us what it is now, and then it
Yeah.
should still be able to run some numbers that show how it moves. Like if that revenue moves to industrial, we should be able to see it come down.
Right, with the
Because, you know,
existing
You're
numbers.
gonna use numbers that exist now, and apply dollars that we plan to change it to. But that way we can see how it moves from commercial, residential over to industrial, and how much that change, what that change how much change happens.
It'll change the revenue numbers for industrial, but it
Yeah.
shouldn't change.
But the other ones should come down.
Not, not
Percent,
if we
because
do.
it's a percentage. It has to.
Oh, he's saying that we just calculated that if commercial captures $1 million, right now it's X percentage. When that industrial number goes up, then the same $1 million should be a different percentage number of the total.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause we should be able to see it shift from residential and commercial over to industrial.
Once you run,
See how much it
once you run the
changes.
rate increases on your industrial, you said it's A, B, and C percentage wise of commercial, residential, industrial, getting the whole nut, and once you get the new nut and you run the same numbers, those percentages are gonna change.
Yeah, the pie is cut up differently.
Mhm.
That's it.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, as far as budget wise, there's really no, from what I gave you before, there's very little changes other than the 300, and then there was a small change in the 100 line, from the changes that were in the general fund.
So is that encumbered in the 4% we've been talking about, or does that drive us up there?
We've been
Are we,
talking, oh, the waters, right now, this is, the waters is at a 6% increase.
right, but when we've been saying we're looking at a 4% budget, but did this 300K up that, have we gone further?
So the way they presented the water fund and the sewer fund was at 0% initially. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes.
By asking,
So water was at 0 and sewer was at 1.6.
Only one user sewer was originally going on, correct, like residential or something? It wasn't all three, like, users on the sewer line, was it originally, Rick?
Oh, we hadn't even talked rates, so just the budget that we had proposed, so water was a 0% and sewer was 1.4, 1.6%.
1.6, I believe, yeah.
so the general fund was 4%, the general fund still is 4%.
Okay.
To make these additional $300,000 worth of additional capital money in the water fund, it would bump the increase to 6%. And then, so some of these changes that we're discussing to make with the industrial users, we'll see how much of that $300,000 can be maybe made up with making these changes to effectively then bring that 6% increase down.
So is that 6% of the whole budget or just
Just-
general?
Just the water fund,
Just the
just the
water.
water.
Yeah,
So what are we at, the entire budget, which is what we normally cost?
It's still 4.
4%.
The general fund came in at 4%, the water, his water fund was 0, now the general's still gonna stay at 4. And the water to make up these.
Jason, are you thinking that we merge all three together?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
No.
We don't?
We-
And we talking about approving the budget?
Yeah, you're gonna
And we're
approve.
talking about what that percentage increase is?
What you'll do is, you'll have to, before you approve the budget, then you have to approve the sewer water rates. That'll be a separate resolution on the 15th to approve the sewer water. Once you do that, then we approve the budget. The sewer and water becomes part of that budget,
Okay,
okay?
okay, and we're talking about this 300K we've added is in the rates. We're adjusting that in the rates.
Correct.
Just in the water fund, not the sewer.
Okay.
If a water and sewer under the current changes to the budget are both 6%.
Do you wanna talk about sewer, or you want them to do the same thing with the sewer rates?
Is it a similar conversation?
Sewer is identical, really, it's the 300,000, small change of the 100 line. Really, the only thing I think I want to make sure that we discuss is the capital projects that we didn't talk about. I think there were some questions about.
But is there a similar breakdown of discounts across, for sewer?
No, no,
Sewer is
there's one rate.
one rate for everybody.
Yes,
Right.
sewer is discounted in industrial, and that's the only one that's discounted in. I don't have the
0.00808 is industrial sewer, right?
Right.
There's separate. And then there's sewer for residential outside is a separate rate. Commercial outside is a different rate than that.
Right.
In industrial outside, let me see here, commercial.
There's a small discount for industrial sewer, and that's because all of our industrial accounts are enrolled in the industrial pre-treatment program, so they have sampling to ensure that they're always in compliance with the sewer use ordinance.
So there are separate, because it's sewer for residential in the city is 00986. Sewer for commercial in the city is 01035, and sewer industrial in the city is 00808.
Right.
So recommend, like, equalizing them?
No, they're all that way for a reason. We have our residential rate, which is what it is. We have our commercial rate, which is a little bit higher than our residential rate because typically commercial waste is not regulated as much as industrial waste, and it's generally about 20% higher strength than residential waste from restaurants and whatever. And then our industrial rate is discounted because they're enrolled in a program to ensure their compliance with the sewer use ordinance. And they have cost with that.
And a lot of them they pre-treat their
Yes.
their waste or whatever, however they put it through some sort of filtration stuff,
Yep.
right?
Plus a lot of water they buy is going down the drain too, right?
Right.
So your
I
concentration.
get that, I get that.
So the sewer rates make sense the way they are. I did have, was it last year maybe? I talked about, because I think we raised the commercial sewer rate 5%. I think we were going to do that again at a certain period of time to kind of recoup the costs for treating commercial waste. But we haven't done that. I don't really see a need to do that at this point.
Is the increase in the outside the city stuff just because of the lines to get there? Is that why that's higher?
There is added cost to get it to where it is.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Right, and we do maintain, their lines. And when they need something, that's a service that we provide. So.
I guess I'm a little confused about the water rate increase. You mentioned 6%, but that was without raising the industrial fees. So if we raise the industrial fees, can't we lower the water rate increase?
That's what John was saying. He was saying
Yes, that's
that
why
we can
We
take.
have to see how
look.
much he can generate.
Yeah.
Get my old man brain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
so-
saying, it's kind of like you don't know until he
Yeah.
comes back with his numbers.
Yeah,
So-
if he makes these changes and says, you know, we think we can raise it 150, then we could
Back that number out and figure out the percent. Got it.
I could feel heat coming from him over here thinking so hard.
So the more, obviously, the more money we can generate with those adjustments, then obviously that'll correlate to a reduced rate for everyone else.
And ultimately, we're just trying to balance it out,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I
that
mean-
everybody in essence pays their fair share.
Right, there's been an awful lot of changes to not only rates, but the structure over the last few, 3 years or so. And this is just really the last of it.
Okay. Any other questions about water and sewer?
Well, as far as sewer goes, I think, Brad, you wanna talk about, kind of, so we have an idea, we've added, we're looking at a 6% increase for the additional capital, that's in addition to the 250,000 that's already in the budget for sewer lining. This puts an extra $300,000 in there for, again, capital. What is some of the, we talked about the $400,000 water line project. What are we faced with here for sewer line, for sewer projects, for capital projects?
I know the one thing we talked about was, Brad, that you would not, what was it, Bill, not the valve replacements,
Up at the,
over at South Union Street Bridge.
Yeah, so that's the project that we really need to move forward with, but we can't move forward until we secure the property again. The property that's
That's right.
once ours.
That's right, okay.
So we're at a standstill until we acquire the property. We have 2 8-inch siphon lines that go under the river, it's from 30s. One's partially plugged. That conveys all the sewage from South Olean to the side. With the expansion over there, obviously it doesn't look like it did in the 30s. It's severely undersized.
Do we have to go into executive session to talk about where we're held up there, what it's gonna take to move forward?
I'm sorry,
I said, is that an executive session or deal where we're at, I'm talking about where we gotta go to get that project moving along, even if we have the money slotted for it?
yeah.
Good. 'Cause I feel like we need to do that.
So, John, you had mentioned, so we do have the capital outlay of the 250,000 in that 2301 line, but you mentioned the 300,000 that's not in here yet, correct?
Oh, it's in what Len sent out.
Okay, which portion did you place it under? Because that, I was looking at sewer maintenance.
Oh, that's the same as,
Oh, sorry, I wasn't looking on my phone to find it, okay.
Oh, it is an 813301.
8133, okay.
What page is that?
57.
Oh, there's 256s in there too, so, okay. Okay,
So that's the siphon project, we can go into executive session about that. But additionally, what we were faced with, that we know, is probably, the North Olean.
Right.
What's the cost, do we have to, I forgot, did you send out a ballpark price on that? Or an estimate?
I can't remember if I just got it.
You said something that was under 380.
Yeah, that's about right. Yep.
386,000,
Yep, yep.
somewhere's in that.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that for that?
That's that one, yep.
Okay, yeah, you sent that.
Yep. So, and DEC is, thinking about letting us use the 250,000 that we set aside for lining for that project. I would be shocked if they said, no, we can't. I do meet with her on the 17th. Oh,
That's
I should have an answer before that.
What was the 250 originally for, Brad?
sewer line.
That's what the DEC,
That's
and we already have in our budget,
Required.
that's required.
Sent order that we have with the DEC on $250 a year to reline sewer lines.
So,
We make upgrades to our sewer lines.
so my question was, would the DEC count that, could we use
But
that
it's
to do
still
the?
gonna kind of be a moot point, because if you attack them 3 other sewer lines at roughly 400, you're still gonna come up with that.
Those are water lines.
Oh, okay, sorry, thanks.
Do we, the lining per year, how much we spend, do we have like an end in sight for that, or is it?
It's like 2042.
Okay.
We'll leave that to the next council.
You gotta know, right?
Bill will still be.
If I had that lining company, I'd just keep
Dave will
going
still
until
be
before I
the
can
mayor
check.
will be here.
Dave and Bill will still
No,
be.
yes,
We'll be,
2 years after that, we have another eclipse.
we'll plan for it. Okay, so are we good with water and sewer? I mean, and honestly, one of the things we're looking to do with the same thing as with water and sewer in terms of planful, as we go forward in next budgets and stuff, wanting to make sure that we set aside monies for other things, whether it's vehicles, right, that we begin to put together, set aside monies on an annual basis for vehicles, so that, you know, we're not coming up with it, 200 and some thousand. So I think this is a good start for us for year one and getting a plan full with it.
I've got just a follow-up question, and this is for really, for the mayor to work, to ask with Brad, to work with Brad and Lens on. So, I mean, the general fund balance is tight, right? We're at 10%, the water fund is pretty close to 10%, the sewer fund is pretty built up. So and I know the original intention was to build that up, to make sure we have the necessary funding to repay the sewer bond, is that right, the sewer plant? Is that too much of a cushion, or is that still, I guess, I'd like to know, where was that, and, 5 years ago versus today, and the fund balance for the sewer fund? Because that's at 43%, which is pretty high. None of us want to just increase sewer rates for the sake of it, but do we have an idea of, is that dwindling down as we make our debt payments on the sewer plant, the $20 million bond?
Now that I think, John, I may have answered your question. Is the debt service lens in the sewer fund in the budget to pay that?
We have a schedule every year for the sewer fund that municipal solution gave us. But I don't think we rely on the fund balance to do that.
No, it's in the budget.
We budget it every year.
Yeah, the debt service is in the sewer budget, so. But,
There's a line item for it.
yes, yes. So this is just what we've accumulated, so, and I believe our fund balance policy says we're to maintain 15%.
Right.
Yeah, so.
I'm not suggesting we go out and blow that, but
No.
maybe.
We could spend some money out of it, yes.
The debt service for sewer is 1.2 million, that's built in the budget. As far as sewer goes, you're looking at the Buffalo Street underpass for a project, you're looking at the North Olean sewer collapse as a project. And you're looking at the sewer siphon.
There's no shortage of projects.
And South Fourth Street pump station.
And South Fourth Street Pump Station.
And the siphon is, again, the South Union Street one, right?
South Union Street.
That's what you're referring to as the siphon.
Yeah, the 2 8-inch siphons that go into the river, we need to acquire the property in order to.
Yep, just making sure when you say that, that's what you're, okay.
Yeah, so those are two separate things, the South Union Street siphon and the 4th Street pump station.
Yeah, just making sure.
I did, yeah.
Didn't we approve it last year? Maybe we didn't. I know we talked about Buffalo Street.
Yes, you did. Yep.
It's already been approved.
Yeah, so the issue with that is, the first time we went out to bid, everything, we got one contractor to bid on it, that came in over budget, and we allocated more money through encumbering into the capital fund. So now we got some more money in there. It went out to bid a second time, we got no bidders. I'm preparing to send it out here shortly, as soon as I get the electrical drawings back for a third time, and hopefully we can execute that project. So, the pumps and controls, we have the quote for that, it's $140,000. But we need structural improvements in order to do that.
Any other water, sewer?
Are we,
Questions for Brad?
Are we emphasizing any stress on new projects since the recent flood waters that we dealt with? Or no?
There's-
Just the discharges into the river, is that changing our outlook on anything in the near future that we need to think about?
For me, it changes, it brings enforcement to the forefront, making sure that we don't have illegal connections for inflow.
So that's why I asked, because I know whenever we talk about it, we just talk about disconnecting people's roof drains and creating a problem for all the people instead of the city. So I wanna know if it makes sense to do something different that helps the people, the city, and the city. Whereas maybe that's something like a tree or sidewalk program. I mean, can we connect these into the storm sewers instead of the sewer?
Yeah.
So that way we're not just having everybody to discharge into their lawn in the neighbor's basement. Like, that to me makes sense over just going out and disconnecting people and then having the water in all our basins. Because the city, most of the homes in the city weren't built for the drainage to be right. That's why we have the problem.
So I think that is granted, we need to look at it in the budget, but I think that's a question for putting a proposal as to how we're gonna do it. One is enforcement and the other is how we might planfully make some changes, and I think Brad can work on that to give us something.
Yeah, so I think if you,
I'm sorry, it's a conversation we need to have sooner than later.
Okay.
I mean, if you're looking at numbers, statistically, if we do something engineering-wise or building a structure or something to handle that flow, we're trying to control an event that is 0.02%. We're trying to control that 0.02% of our flow. We treated 1.03 billion gallons in the last 12 months. And of 1.03 billion gallons, 226,000 got to a waterway because we couldn't handle it.
And so I think what makes sense, figure out what are your big hitters, is it the homes or is it businesses on, even if it's a street, create a program that pulls that out, and then you take out whatever's your biggest whack. You don't go make everybody do it if you could get 90% of your compliance to fix 110% of your problems.
So that's a great point, Jason, that you bring up, because I actually had somebody in the community reach out to me about that and ask if the city's looked at investing in a flow meter to do when surges happen, measure flow increases from various points of access to identify where is and maybe you have a ballpark idea, but it may, if we don't have a flow meter, it may be something worth exploring to have a study done to pinpoint where is 80% of your problem coming from.
And then, if you spend the money or it's a share of money, you go fix that, they say now it'll never happen, no matter who's still hooked in on an old home or streets, but we're good. And you don't have to do something.
So I agree, and I think this is an important conversation, but I also think that it's separate from the budget. And
It is, I was
that
just,
we
I
need
wanna
to,
know if it was gonna affect us, so we
Yeah.
could just kinda get down that road. But,
so I do think that's something that the mayor and Brad are probably working on to come up with a solution to bring forward. A solution. Yeah, let's make sure we get that word correct for any of the lip readers out there. So, okay, so we're good with Brad, sewer, water. Okay, so this does put us at a 4% increase. It includes the $300,000 for water, $300,000 for sewer for capital outlay, everything else that we reviewed. So now is the time if you have other questions, concerns, or things that you want to bring up, because we're looking at the budget with a 4%, which would mean breaking the tax cap.
The other thing I'd like to ask Sonia, if I can, is,
Are you asking permission? No, just kidding, go ahead. You said if you can.
as we started off, I said last year that if we override the tax cap, we're gonna be setting a precedent, that we're gonna do it every year. Seems like it's very easy to get 5 votes on this council to override this tax cap. So I have a feeling that next year it's gonna be the same old BS, we're gonna override it again. What I wanna know is, our budget that's been proposed, it's a $29.4 million budget, is that correct? Because it was, a couple people thought it was a $21 million budget, but I think it's a $29.4 million
Is
budget.
that the total for the street budget?
That's all to be combined, 29, but the general fund itself is 20,490,422.
Okay, so the 4% tax rate would be out of a $20 million budget then? Okay. I guess my question is on this current, is there any way to project out of this current budget, any projection of what will be left over on May 31st, and what will be encumbered back into the city's general fund?
We're working on that, we're working on that now.
Because and the reason I'm asking that, I'm thinking that if, for 1% tax rate, it's a $72,000 expenditure to reduce it by 1%. So unless I'm wrong, Lens can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking we need about $144,000 to reduce it to 2%. So what I was asking is, at the end of May, is there gonna be $144,000 left that's unused, and that we could keep the budget at a 2% tax increase? That's my question that I'm asking. Or does this council have the power right now to say, effective immediately April 15th, no more expenditures out of the current budget unless there's an emergency authorized by the mayor to okay, and we could come up with $144,000.
Just so you all know, I have put a spending, no unnecessary spending in place. That all credit card spending has to be approved prior to any orders. And any large expenditures has to be approved by myself. So we're trying to do that, Dave, but I guess what you're saying is, do you want to use that amount of, whatever we need to reduce it to 2%? Do you want to take that out of fund balance? Okay, we would have to include that amount in the budget. This budget we're working on for 24, 25. And then replace it at the, when the current budget ends at May 31st.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if you had any idea of what was going to be left over at the end of May. There's always funds left over. For example, in Lens's professional account, JR found, or Lens pointed out, we used it for the charter fund, $65,000 was just sitting there. So I'm sure across, the city's pretty big, there's a lot of light items. I'm sure there's some extra funds sitting somewhere that's going to be unused, especially since you put a freeze, thank you, especially since you put a freeze on spending. So, I guess.
It's not a total freeze, it's no unnecessary spending, everything
when I went on to Google, looking at Olean's poverty rate, according to the Google, Olean's poverty rate is at 23.8%. Our population is only 13,700. I don't even know if that qualifies us as a city status anymore, with the population dropping that much. 23% poverty rate in the city of Olean is quite large. So it's like, if we could keep within the tax cap, I think it would benefit many of our citizens across the city. And especially if we're gonna be encumbering some money at the end of this current fiscal year, I can't see why raising the rates 4%. Especially when we're also talking about a potential 6% water increase, which will probably come lower after Brad gives us his report. But the average citizen in Olean doesn't make 6 figures. Especially if they got a family, it's gonna be tight for a lot of people. And I know things are going up across the board. I mean, if you go to the grocery store, it probably costs you $50 for one plastic bag of groceries compared to what it did a few years ago.
You can't get plastic.
I'm talking about Bradford Walmart.
Just throwing it out there. Sorry, David.
Buy local, Dave, buy local.
They don't get any sales tax.
Just for plastic, way to go, Dave.
So one of the challenges, as I see it, is we do want to, I agree. I think there's a lot of people who are borderline making it, right? They don't have dollars left to go on vacation or have extra cable channels or buy groceries even, right? And balancing that with, if there's nothing left at the end of the year to encumber, then we don't have any kind of savings, if you will,
Well, I'm
right?
sure there's gonna be something that's gonna be.
Well, and I'm in
That's why I
agreement.
asked the question to
Yep.
the mayor to come back, see if he can
Yeah.
come back to us like reasonably quick.
And I think that that's a good question, because, you know, we had 70,000 that was found for vehicles, right? So there is the question about that. So I think that's a legitimate question that, Lance has a comment.
It's not, actually, I did send an email to all of you guys on March 26th with some numbers. Stating that if we were to close the book maybe a couple of weeks ago, we would have roughly about $400,000 unspent. But granted that we have 2 months to go, I don't know exactly how much of that we're gonna have by May 31st. So that's 400. The reason for that was we collected 87% of our revenue, and we only expended 84% of expenditures. So based on those percentages, we should have $400,000. But that was 2 months ago. I mean, if you recall, that was March 26th. We have April and May still to go.
So you projected out in each one of the kind of line items where we would be, and that would leave us 400,000.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
As of March 26, 2024. But we have April and May still to go.
Son,
Yes.
can I speak?
Yep.
So, you know, as always, you know, I do appreciate Alderman Anastasia's, you know, willingness to be fiscally responsible, and I think that's the goal and responsibility of all of us. With that being said, if we were sitting on a fund balance that had 43% general fund balance, if we had a $10 million balance, I would say that would make sense. We have a $2 million fund balance. We're under 15%, which is our threshold of our safety net, if you will. And I'm not saying it's got to always stay 15%. Is that what our rule is, or 10%? 15%. So we're under the council mandated threshold of having that safety net there. That's number one. Number two is, if, you know, for everyone that paid close attention during the budget presentations, almost every department, primarily 95% of it was driven by the 100 line item salary increases, and it was right around 4%. So between the three different contractual increases that we have, 95% of it is being an increase at around 4%. Those are things that we can't just get away from, right? Those are people's salaries. So unless we want to eliminate jobs, we need to be able to pay the fringe and benefits and the salaries of the employees. And so we knew going into last year's budget that it was going to be tough, and we knew going into this year's budget. Now, future outlook, I think, is promising. Inflation is coming down slowly, but the reality is we're still feeling the effects of inflation. We're still dealing with that. And again, I would even tend to agree with Dave and say, hey, things are, you know what, we can find some money, we can replenish it. Len says, well, maybe we get 400,000, maybe we get less, but it looks promising. But keep in mind, that 400,000 that goes back into the general fund is what we use to pay for, so we don't have to bond for everything, for the larger items that we have to invest in our infrastructure across the city. We've got a slew of capital projects, which a capital fund, the general fund capital over there on that board is almost $250,000. That's going to have to come out of someplace, right? We only have $47,000 left in the contingency of the general fund. So something like that, the remainder will probably have to come out of the general fund. We've got $350,000 worth of lots and so on, parks that need repair. How much, Mayor, potentially did we talk about a HVAC system here or something?
Yeah.
And we had a ballpark figure of what?
Well, ballpark right now is gonna be about 200,000.
Okay, I mean, so, and we probably could get even a better list of things where we're really not even talking about what do you call it, I mean, there's no shortage of major lists that now is not the time to just nickel and dime. We have so much capital infrastructure to have to worry about and to save for. And what do you call it? The city garage. A lot of these places are in drastic need, and I'm very cautious about, making nickel and diming the tax increase right now. I think we need to build up our fund balance, and I think we need to start having a long priority list of capital projects, quite frankly. So we know what the hell we're dealing with, just like we know what we're dealing with and can attack sewer lines and water lines. We need I think Jason or someone had talked about, or JR, we set aside $20,000, but if the Bartlett House needs a new roof, it ain't gonna be $20,000, it's gonna be significantly more. Where does that money come from? It comes from the general fund. So these are areas where we need to set our focus, and why I support 4%, and no, Dave, I don't want to make it a habit either, but I also, I don't want to see a habit of, inflation being, 8% or 5%. We can go back in time and take a look at the 0%, the 1% that we had. The economy goes up and down, and inflation goes up and down, and this is what I feel we're faced with.
Just to counteract if I can.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, those capital projects, just to give you some idea of that total, because as you were talking, I ran the number, would be about $790,000. If we did the ones that are up there, the 350 repair, and then the 200,000 HVAC, that's $790,000 plus right there.
And that doesn't even add in the fact that we came in over on the East State Street project, right? So that's gonna have to be additional funds that are spent. Lens, do you remember what that difference is? What is it?
1.087 or something.
$1 million over, right? Higher than what our fundings is. So it's not like we don't have bills to pay.
Oh, the Anastasia.
Yeah, just to counteract this, I'm not saying take anything out of this fund balance that we have now up to $2,073,000 up there. I'm saying that we're gonna have money left over at the end of this budget year. We know that. We know that approximately $140,000 will lower the tax rate by 2%. We know that. And I can almost bet my last dollar that we're gonna have $140,000 left encumbered from the 23-24 budget. This year's budget is basically a nutshell of last year. Last year we said, no, we're not gonna hire a parks position at full-time. Well, we got it in this year's budget. Is it warranted to have a full-timer there and getting rid of 2 part-timers? I'm not sure, I'm not convinced that it is. If you go to a full-time employee, they're gonna be protected by the union as a full-time employee. And we're not gonna be able to dictate, we're gonna have to come up with a set hours for this person. We're not gonna say, okay, today you're working 9 to 5, but tomorrow we want you to work 5 to midnight. I mean, that's what unions are for, they got core hours. So with the part-timers, we can change their schedules around. So that's another thing that we look at. As far as East State Street goes and South Union Street goes, these are things that, yeah, we got a grant, but the city's also has to come up with $1 million to put into this. This is something that, does it need to be done? Is it a necessity? Is somebody gonna die because East State Street's not repaved or a roundabout is not put in? No, these are frills that we're trying to connect the rest of the roundabouts to. So that's not a necessity, East State Street, in my opinion. I'm looking out for the average Joe that's out there that has to pay these bills. And it has to worry about whether I buy my medication today or do I pay my taxes today? Do I buy groceries today or buy my medication today? I'm talking about the average taxpayer that's in the city of Olean. Not everybody in Olean can go on vacations, can have 3-4 cars, and so forth. I'm looking out for the people that don't come to these meetings, don't speak up, that call me or see me on the street. They know I've been in politics for years, so I'm known wherever I go. So I get complaints from people I don't even know, who know me, and come up to me and complain. So that's what I'm speaking out for.
Alderman Ford.
I just wanted to say, I hear what you're saying, but I think even though you're not pulling from this to reduce taxes, we need to replenish that savings as well. So anything left over, just kind of echoing what John said, replenishes that savings to get us to that threshold, so we can continue to operate, the city and be able to have that cushion if need be. So I understand what you're saying, and I also agree with, the position, I don't know if that's a right direction to go, because I think we can be more efficient with the part-time employees. But I think that money, if, we have money left over in that budget, that really needs to go to get us to that threshold. That is important, and costs continue to rise, and in the past we haven't had increases where costs still continue to rise. And so, I do support the 4% in that case. I just wanted to add my 2 cents.
John brings up some good points, but obviously, as I voted last year, I do side with Dave. We asked the residents to tighten your belts. I still think there's room that the city can tighten its belt, whether it be doing projects in-house. I know when I asked if we could do the North Olean sewer, we're sending that out because we want to have a guarantee on the levy system, but that's, between engineering and projected cost, that's $500,000 plus the purchase of a pump. When that first came in here, when I first came on the council, that was a critical and needed to be now. And then it sat and it was no longer critical. We spent nearly $100,000 on pump rentals and pump purchases. looking at that, I don't think that's being as efficient as we possibly can. I understand that the cost goes up, I understand that we have to replenish all of that, but I still think that the city needs to take and be much more efficient, even if it's doing projects in-house, so that way we're not paying prevailing rate to do some of these things to better ourselves. I think that when we can couple those things, that's gonna then give some relief to the taxpayers. John makes a lot of good points, but so doesn't Dave when he says you can't just keep putting them on the back of the taxpayer. So, you know, still think there's some that could, some wiggle room, so I'm gonna agree with Dave, and I just asked Bill, and I didn't know that came out, so that's why I asked Bill, kind of, primarily I asked him, that one potential position had come out, to know if the number was adjusted for that. So I guess that's where I'm at.
Alderman Panis.
I agree with Alderman Benyon on some of the points he makes. Specifically like the sewer in North Olean. I feel like that should have been done faster, sooner, and possibly in-house. I deal with similar issues in my profession, you know, where when it goes outside your zone of comfort a little bit, people get wary about being confident in doing things. Maybe we need to do something to build that confidence or bring in that expertise, whatever it is, because in the end, in the long term, it'll give us the benefit, right? Where we can do things in-house. Maybe it's a key person or some kind of training or equipment. I don't know what that is, but there's huge savings to be made there when you can do these kind of out of scope things on your own. You can save $500,000, and then you can, maybe that saves your budget, or it lets you attack one of those other projects we're not talking about. When it does come to the 2% and the tax cap, I'm sorry, but unless I'm missing something, just my general understanding of economics, I don't think I've ever lived through a period where inflation wasn't over 2%. So to even, like, if you can generate revenue and you can make up that difference, to me that's the only way it makes sense where you could stay below 2. Because otherwise, just to keep up with inflation, if you did it every year, you'd be going over 2%. I mean, that's tight. That law has almost guided it, saying budgets were inflated so much in the past, we're gonna limit it to 2 to make you bring it down. And so that's what we're going through, and we're cutting services until we get there. And that, even though that might get it there, that's a rough one for me, so.
I just want to give a point of, you know, we talked about groceries and buying groceries and the, you know, I don't know, saving lives and stuff. To go from, if your house is assessed at $50,000, a 4% increase puts your city tax bill from $813 a year to $843. So it increases at $30. I don't even know if you can buy a bag of groceries for $30 spread out over the entire year. So, you know, again, at any time, you know, and I think it's honestly, I think it's not fair. You know, it's easy to toe the line. It's easy to stand here and say, you know what, I'm not going to vote to go over the tax cap, to put it on the rest of us to do that. It's an easy stance. It's easy to vote no on a budget. It's difficult. I've been here 8 years. If you go back to 0%, we had some 1%. Just so happened inflation was 1% too, right? Inflation was 2%. It was under that. Today it's not. So you've got to live in a world of reality, and you've got to face the fact that we have obligations. And unless there are blatant, obvious solutions for ways to, you know, that can immediately take effect to create revenue, like I think, had a good conversation tonight as far as creating water, you know, a different restructuring the water rates to help soften that burden. But the reality is, you've got costs and they go up. And to slow down, and we're gonna have to be faced with that. And I'm not, you know, I don't think any of us are voted here to take the easy route. You gotta do the right route. And that's where, you know, if I thought 4% was unreasonable, I would absolutely, to fight to bring that down. But given everything else and all the additional costs that go up, it's a necessary evil again this year. And I think I said that last year, that we would be faced with this. I think the mayor had asked for a 5% or something higher last year, but, you know, we brought it down. And yeah, we are right back to that point this year. But everything, at least from an outlook standpoint, things are looking better next year. It would be great if we could plan to take the, whatever had been built into the budget, $800,000 increase in sales tax revenue, but that's not realistic. Okay, we can't just wish for that to happen. So we had to decrease that, right? That source of revenue. I think the bed tax is a great, something that's been brought up. I think that's a great avenue to come in with new revenue. I think JR talked about, and we talked about having the meters put downtown. I think that's a great new source of revenue. We need to start looking at more of those sources of revenue. But until that, we've got to pay our bills, and we got to protect our and invest, continue to invest in ourselves. Although it might not be popular.
Alderman Benton.
Just a quick, rebuttal. John, I know you factored out and you said it's not even a bag of groceries.
Yeah.
And you say that the easy way out to vote no. It's also an easy way out to justify it by saying it's only that $40. Their car insurance went up, their gas went up, their heat went up, their electric went up. It's also easy to justify it. I'm not advocating one or the other. I'm just saying when you say that, it's very demeaning to be like, it's only $40. There's a lot of other costs in our household that also went up. It's not just that $40 that year. Electric bills, everything's sky high. So I'm just pointing out that it's not just that $40 or $50. It's in a month. There's a lot of money going out, and they're cutting different services in their own homes to try to make the bag of groceries, like you just said. $40 doesn't mean bag of groceries. I went down to the store and bought one reusable shopping bag, and I think it was about $75, and it wasn't even full. So I'm just pointing out, it's not the argument, I'm just pointing out it's not just that $40. There's a lot of other costs.
But you're a business owner, and you understand that in many ways the city's a business too. And our costs go up. And every business across which is why the rest of us, our bills go up. Everything you listed goes up. Because the businesses pass that cost on to us, but they make a profit. We're breaking even, right? And we're providing everything from, fire and police to streets, and I mean the list, the long list that we have. And our costs go up, so we have no alternative.
You are correct as a business owner, but as a business owner of somebody that can either use me or not, I also have to be careful to not outprice when I have to look at increasing. Where the city and its business model just gets to say, well, this is our new tax rate. I don't get to say that and mandate my price and say you will use this toilet at this cost. I don't have that luxury. The city has that luxury to say, this is what it is. If you don't like it, it goes to this, and it goes to the lien, and then it goes to tax foreclosure. I don't get to do that in the outhouse business and say, you're gonna use this at this rate, and it's mandated, sorry. So you are right, I do, yes, from a business standpoint, but I don't get the luxury of mandates. I just get the luxury of hoping to make the increase to cover the costs.
Alderman Anastasia.
Okay, this is my last comment, plea, I guess, with this council. It seems like last year, it's already met, signed, sealed, and delivered. But anyways, through this budget process, yeah, it was great. I think Brad's presentation was probably the best out of all of them, to tell you the truth. But there was not one person here who said, make this cut, make that cut, or try to find this cut. 4% came in, what the mayor proposed. I'm not putting any blame on the mayor, but this council didn't say reduce it at all, cut anything. I mean, if you would've went to 3%, it would have been more palatable. At the rate we're going right now, 4% last year, 4% this year, next year will be another 4%, the next 10 years, that's 40%. We're driving people out of this state faster than we realize. I mean, we've had two retirements this year, or since I've been on the council, just in this city building, of secretarial retirements. And we talk about attrition, but nothing ever comes back to this council. Nobody asks, can we replace this person? The position is always filled. So it's like, how are we ever gonna do attrition when somebody retires, the position just gets replaced? So it's like, it's a no-win situation, and it's like, I'm just trying to stick up for the average Joe, which I feel the majority of the residents that don't come to these meetings appreciate. And it's like, I'm not doing this because I'm not running for mayor. Hell, I might not even run for alderman again. But I'm just, as I'm here and elected, I'm just trying to stick up for the people that put me here. And I represent not just my ward, but the entire city too, as well.
Mayor, how much did the council request you cut in the budget?
700,000.
Okay, 700,000 was cut. If you read the letter.
So, you know, as we look at this, I think with every business, that we always have to be reassessing our staffing patterns, and, you know, I think that there's validity, particularly as technology gets better and better, looking and saying, and I think, you know, as people are leaving, I think fiscally responsible for any company to look and say, you know, do we need 3 receptionists or secretaries now, or, you know, with things? So I guess that's a fair ask. And I do think that we were responsive to the different areas. I remember there were multiple questions asked of the department heads regarding, well, we only see $5,000 expended up to this point, but you got 70,000 in there. And we did ask and kind of say to them, you know, why do you have that? And it came back, well, we only purchase maybe, I think it was this, was it the salt, or we only purchase these supplies every 2 years, or, you know, this is when we purchase it. So I do think that during the budget process, I think we were streamlined this year, but I think that there were several questions asked of department heads to that point exactly. Do you really need this 75,000, or, you know, could you cut that? So I do think we asked those things.
Just a question, Bill, on the revenue side of stuff. We had talked last year about the possibility, as John brought up the meters, but we had talked about maybe that QR code system.
Yeah.
Did we make any headway on that?
No, it was, last year, we actually had proposed 6% last budget, and it was taken down to 4. So, but that's gonna be a big ticket item to get it going. But the potential is there to get quite a bit of revenue from it. So we're gonna we get this budget over with, we're gonna do a study on that, and see what actually it's gonna cost. We're gonna, you know, if you look at it, I don't think anybody wants to see meters going back up on the street, but we can put kiosks. So we have to look at what areas of this do we want to do it. Union Street, how far down on West State Street, the lots, the parking lots, you know, and all that. So we'll have to put together a plan and then come back to you and say, here's what our plan is, and have a discussion on that. So I would invite a couple of the aldermen I'm going to resurrect the parking committee, and I would invite a couple of the aldermen to sit on that committee and work on it with us. So
Yeah,
if you're interested, let me know.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I was up at Alfred not that long ago, and they actually, in the village, they have that. I was a little surprised, but sure enough, in downtown,
Do they have the kiosks?
they just have a QR code.
I was gonna say, 'cause a lot of them don't even have kiosks.
Nope.
now. It's just
In
a
Buffalo,
picture
I
of a
used the
QR code
kiosk,
on the
but,
side,
yeah.
You just take a picture, it's all through an app.
That's exactly
No
what it is.
kiosks, you don't even have to, some do it where, like, if it was North Union Street, there might be like 3 kiosks down the whole block or whatever, or in a section, I'm sorry, I spoke there. What a lot lot of them, it's literally, you walk up to this sign and there's a QR code, you take it, and it's on your phone and you put your plate in, it's done.
So you're minimizing the.
You're minimizing your upfront cost.
In the village of Alfred, they have that, because I had taken a picture of it, because I was like, oh, cool. So,
I mean,
yeah.
just because it's something we talk about, I would be interested in doing that, but.
That's what we need to vet out all of these options.
Mayor, I think the only thing that came up to me as we were discussing things is, just to throw this out there, that there is significant concern over the viability of the full-time versus the part-time and the true gain with that position. I know at least 3 that we talked about, whether or not that was, and then thank you for getting us the figures. But by the time we factor in vacations and time off, it would average to be less hours than the 2 part-time positions. So I'm just throwing that out as that is the one thing that I think came back to me regarding the budget.
Well, as Chris has been pointing out for the last several years, is that the part-timers it's not reliable. You can't say, okay, we're gonna work you 20 hours a week, we're gonna work you this. They have other jobs, and they fill in when they're available. Okay. The other thing is that built into this with that position is also a $25,000 increase in revenues. So if we eliminate that position, we're gonna have to eliminate the $25,000 in revenues that we're not gonna get over there. I think Chris has laid the plan out. He is, I know it's a tough choice, but we want, we're gonna have the splash park coming in, and it's a tough choice, but we need the coverage over there in order for, I don't think any of you can deny that Chris has been doing a great job in promoting the place and doing a lot of things there. So we've got to give him the tools to work with also, so we can continue to promote that place and keep building up the revenue in that place. And the way we can do it is by having the known number of hours going to be working in that full-time position. And I disagree with Dave on saying we can't say it's going to be flex hours. We can, as long as they know coming in, and that they're going to be working flex hours, then we can do that. And the other thing with that is too that I just lost my senior moment. I lost my thought, but anyways, the flex hours is there. Vacation, vacation. It's a new employee. They go the first year without vacation, then they start on the schedule. So, and they also come in at a reduced price according to the CSEA contract. And I'm not sure if that's 61,000. It's 10% less, and then it goes 8% less, and then it goes, I think 6%, and then 4 years, then you're up to top pay of that position. So I think it's needed. I think we need to continue on with what we're doing over there at the recreation center, and to have that coverage and to have that availability there. It'd be wise for us to leave that in the budget.
I guess I was just gonna ask that, because some of the problems that Chris noted were lack of coverage, like for call-ups and stuff like that, and getting the other hours. I know one thing I've talked about with Sonia and John is like there's 4 positions, and what is it, roughly 30? They budgeted for 30 hours or something. I can't recall.
Well, the 2 positions that are projected, they're looking to be cut for a total of 40 hours a week.
Okay, so rather than looking at it, and you saying that the part-times can't work that number of hours, is there benefit to just hiring more part-time people, looking at it instead of saying I have 4 part-time people, I have 100 part-time hours to budget for?
There's also a problem finding people, and it also comes into a problem of you're constantly the turnover in training. Remember that person has to be trained in running the Zamboni, and has to be a pool. They're going to have. We need pool operators there too. So constant changeover, and where you get into the lack of coverage there. So we can put on more part-time positions, but there again, finding the people to do it. We're trying to maintain stability over there and to find those efficiencies that we can do. And I think the full-time position will give us that, so we can work on it, find the efficiencies, known hours of things, and with the flex hours, we can open up at 5 a.m. We can stay open on Sunday till 11 p.m. So just those things there, so.
Yeah, years ago, I would have had a different opinion, but, over the years, I've discovered that, you typically try to invest in your core competencies and where you make money, right? So what we're talking about, 100%, right? Ways to make money that, to create revenue that doesn't have to fall on the back of taxpayers. So, downtown parking, something that any other, community our size does, makes sense, right? The hotel tax, the bed tax. Knowing and seeing what Chris has done, looking at the amount of revenue that the ice rink brings in, with our investment in the splash park and adding additional hours, operating hours, there's going to be additional revenue brought in there too, right? And so that's the net benefit from that perspective. I don't see the city adding. This is like the first position. I don't know. Did we add one position last? No, we did no positions last year. The year before, did we add any? Maybe one. But it's usually we cut part-time positions to add one. It's not like we're staffing up all over the place. At least in my years here. So I think this makes sense, but I say that with caution too, because some of the aldermen have the fear or the concern that, okay, we eliminate 2 part-time positions to add a full-time position to take advantage of some of these additional revenue-making opportunities, and then next year they come back and say, we need another part-time position, right? Or, we need 2 more part-time positions, right? That potentially could happen, and it's something that we're going to have to keep tabs on, right? Unless they can show us from the revenue side. And I think we need to start tracking the revenue across the city and across all the different operations. I think code enforcement did a great job with some of their proposals and changes that we've made there. But we've invested a lot in their computer system and things like that, so we should track the revenues that are coming in and analyze them quarterly. And we could do that, in this case too, is take a look at what are the returns on the position and on the ice rink.
Well, John, I know that one of the concerns about coming back next year and asking for part-time, and it's noted in the fact that for me, you want to open more hours, you're going to go to a full-time person, so then that's going to spread that out. One of the chief noted issues was lack of coverage for vacations and call-offs. Now you have this person already allocated to these expanded hours and expanded duties. Now you essentially have 2 less people to cover these call-offs and vacations. So aren't you compounding the problem that's already one of your chief noted problems?
No, not really. I see what you're saying, but no, because this person with the flex hours can be moved to cover that person during vacation. And then you're gonna have 2 part-time, still have 2 part-time managers that can be, that can be used to fill those voids. So you're getting more coverage.
Alderman Thorne.
I was just gonna say, we talk about, because the splash park will be open, but the reality is we're not opening the pool or the splash park this year. And so.
Well, we're hoping to get the splash park open in August.
Right, but then that would be open a month or so, I don't know.
But then we'll be able to get it
Couple
open back
months.
up again
In May.
May.
In the next fiscal year. Yeah, I see both ways, but I'm also looking at things, I also see like showing the demand for that position, right? So when you say, well, if we don't have that, then we can increase the budget, but then if you see, well, we had, tracking I think is really important, right? So if we had this flux in revenue, or, you know, we saw, an increase in, you know, I don't even know, bookings or, you know, usage or whatever, then that demonstrates the need for that. Now, if we have this, we can do this, it's like, hey, we are generating this income, we need someone to manage it, we need someone to manage, so showing the demand for that role. And then, you know, we've already increased, then we can, you know, increase more. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Alderman Robinson, you've been characteristically quiet.
Exactly. So I've been trying to just sit back, relax, and just listen to everyone. Everyone makes a lot of valid points on both sides. Believe it or not, I actually agree with Dave and JR, and that is with a huge asterisk. I'm also a realist. There's no way you can pay your bills if you don't generate money to pay it. It's as simple as that. I think the council has focused on so many different avenues, so many different areas to potentially move money here, to move money there, to pay for this, to pay for that. But there has been little talk. I mean, there has been some, but little talk on revenue. I wrote that in an email the other day in one of our discussions when we were, or not discussions, but when we were giving our thoughts on the budget. And I said that, you know, it's one thing to raise the budget to 4%, but it's another to try to find revenue. While the city is trying to work efficiently, there's still lost revenue. Just to piggyback on Panis's topic earlier with the water lines coming down off the side of the houses. I can't think of the name of it right now, but went around to one neighborhood and I drove up and down the street and there were multiple homes that were still connected. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a code violation. Lost revenue. On one street alone, of all of the houses that were on there, there was one house in compliance. The entire street was out of compliance. Lost revenue. As I was coming here tonight, there was a car parked the opposite way in the street on a main road. Lost revenue. So we have the ability to generate revenue. We just miss out on those opportunities. There is a lot of missed opportunities. So when you look at that, you compound it by an entire year, and then you end up with shortfalls in certain categories where we can't make it up. It would be nice to take and find 150,000, I'll just round it, and throw it in and say, yes, now we can lower the taxes by 2%, but that's 2% less you're gonna gain the next year. So you have to lower your revenue of what you're gonna potentially gain, so that you're working counterintuitive to what you're trying to establish here. So again, I think moving forward, regardless of how this budget goes down next Monday, the council can and should focus on how to generate more revenue. I thought that the putting kiosks or putting the barcode, Q code, downtown Olean. I mean, we're the city of Olean, and we don't have it, but yet she said we established a village 45 minutes away from here has that. Why are we always lagging in technology? Why are we always lagging behind? This is an opportunity to capitalize on revenue, and yet we're missing out on it because, you know, you have to spend money to make money. It's as simple as that. And we're missing out, you know, on that and among other things. So I think our focus should shift on trying to figure out ways to generate more revenue, create a PL, find some other things and bring it to the table and let the council discuss it, and then we move from there. But to say, oh, you know, I understand and I completely understand how people feel. I think of everyone here, I was born and raised in the projects. I know what it's like to be penny pinching and broke. But at the same time, you know, we're at a point where the city can't get to that point. We're behind in our percentages for all of our funds. We're behind. We need to get them back up. We need to pay for numerous projects. We have, John mentioned the garage. We haven't mentioned anything about the wall at the treatment plant. We have multi-million-dollar projects that we still need to take care of, and we can't, because we're still trying to take care of the 250,000 here, the 150,000 there, 200,000 for this place, for an AC unit. It never ends. So we need to have the money and we need to have the funds in order to be able to do those things. So that's where I rest there. I'm definitely gonna vote yes for the 4% because we need it. It's as simple as that. I'm not gonna do a disservice to Olean by not doing it. So that's the way I feel. Hopefully we can adjourn and get the hell out of here.
Well, now that you said something, I was just waiting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Well, just give it a second. Okay, so at this point, and somebody can correct me as to the procedure, we would have to, if we go forward with this as it is, so tomorrow we have a budget meeting. I don't know as we have much to go over, but we have to, if we're going to break the tax cap, we have to vote on that. Is that on Monday also?
There'll be a public hearing at 6 o'clock
On Monday?
on Monday first at 6 o'clock to break the tax cap, and then at 6:05 for the change to water and sewer rates.
Right.
Tomorrow, that's not on the agenda.
No, but just trying to come up with, you know, here, and also so that the public knows well in advance, because one of the things I hear sometimes is they, you know,
Yeah.
even though the minutes and
The
stuff are
tax cap
posted.
notification's already been published in the paper.
Right.
for
But
the
as we
public
know
hearing.
that very few people unfortunately are reading the paper at this point, so they don't read that. So I just want to make sure that everybody has an idea for the 2 or 3 people that might watch us, what the plan is. We'd like everybody to watch us, by the way. So that would be 6 o'clock on Monday,
The 15th.
the 15th. Yes,
We should be able to have further discussions with Brad's stuff tomorrow.
Okay.
With the water and sewer rates.
That's what I was just
Perfect.
going to ask, he should be able to have that.
He's gonna work, he'll work as diligently as he can.
yeah, that's a tight time
Information to
turnaround.
me before the meeting.
Okay, excellent. Anything else that you guys want to make sure we follow up on then tomorrow as we're closing out the budget process?
I'd just like to say thank you to all of you. It's been a lot of good discussion, and I think everybody's here for the same goal. So, thank you.
I agree, and I want to say that compared to last year, this was much more streamlined. The department heads were well prepared. We appreciate, you know, we made some minor requests for next year to have percentages and stuff, but everybody gave us and got back to us for the most part timely, so we appreciate that also. And having said that,
I want to thank the unsung hero over there, Lenz. As someone who has built multi-million-dollar budgets and managed them and analyzed them, I know it's not an easy process, but thank you, Lenz. This year, I mean, to Sonia's point, 3 years going smoother, and so thank you. I know it's a lot of, you know, when you got 7 of us here, you got the big boss here, you know, so there's a lot of voices, and it's not easy. So I do commend you. You did a good job, and I appreciate your efforts.
Sleepless night, but.
Yeah, good thing you don't have any hair to lose.
Hair's overrated.
or make it
Tell him,
right.
Jerry, hair's overrated.
It is.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
Earn it, right?
Till you
And-
go out the sun with that thing.
And I would say, actually, I appreciate Tiffany and her keeping us
Oh,
on
yeah.
track with things, you know, because that's really important, and kind of making sure that our minutes and everything come out amazingly accurate and quickly, so thank you. Okay, with that, I would motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Okay.
Dave is
we're
opposed. He's got one more counter.
I'm putting
He's
away.
got one more counter point to make.